If Mr. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu GSFR knows what is good for this country, knows what is good for each regions of this country, if you want to leave his name in the sand of time, if you want to write his name with, in gold, he should, without any further delay, call for dissolution of this country. There's no need we keep deceiving ourselves. The country is too big to be governed from Abuja. Just take, for instance, you have more than, just take an instance, we have Nigeria has 774 local governments. And out of these 774 local governments, it is very clear that most communities, most local governments are not policed. They don't have police stations, they don't have any presence of security operatives within those regions. The last I checked on the number of military personnel within the Nigerian military force, about 230,000 of them. And police was just a little, about 371,000, or 371 plus, or 372, whichever be the case. But out of this projected number, how many of them are still active in service? With what is going on, most of them, unfortunately, are victims of terrorism. They have lost their lives. They have led their life for this country. You begin to ask now, if you are to take statistics on the number of military personnel in Nigeria, possibly there might be far less than what has been stipulated before now, or what we have on ground. There should be far less than 230,000. Let alone to talk about the policing. Now, if you have to sum up the security operatives, the military and the police, it will not give you anything less than, if we have the actual number, it won't be anything less than 600. If actually that is the number of active security operatives. Now, compare it to 36 local governments, 36 states, including Abuja, 774 local governments. Most of the local governments are even as far bigger than Ghana, the entire Ghana as a country. Now you begin to ask, what is the essence of keeping Nigeria one while there is a possible balkanization of this country? Let each regions, let each ethnic or regions or country that will be coming out of Nigeria, let them manage their own resources, build up their own security. And you have seen, of most recent time, when there was an invasion in Plateau State, the military came to claim that they could not understand the terrain, that the terrain is so harsh, and the military could not navigate through. And of course, the supposed terrorists are taking advantage of that to unleash mayhem on the innocent citizens, which, of course, the government owns the responsibility of protecting their lives and property. But unfortunately, even the instruments of the state claims they are handicapped They could not in any way do anything uh, to protect the citizens. You have repeated attacks, deadly attacks, as the case is, repeatedly, even when the supposed terrorists or Fulani militias or whatever they come themselves gave a notice that they are coming back, the militaries couldn't even make any proactive steps to build up security, to beef up security within those territories, within those regions. They came, they struck again, and they went unarrested. They went without anyone asking them who is doing that. And you begin to ask, where are the militaries? Nigeria is so vast that we can think that with the strength of the military or the security operatives can provide adequate security for the citizens. It is a blunder, it is a white lie. We can't be deceiving ourselves. Now, when you divide the number of police across the entire 774 local governments, what do you have? It is quite clear that they don't even exist. They don't. Because you have some communities, you have some local governments that have little or no, of course, presence of police. Now, what happens in those areas? You've heard of where the Boko Haram, the Islamic jihadists are collecting tax, levying the supposed citizens of Nigeria within the Nigerian territory, and yet the government is aware of this on daily basis. They are being harassed, molested. There is a parallel government going on, collecting levies and taxes, giving the supposed citizens of Nigeria conditions before they go out their daily business, before they go out to farms or whatever is their endeavors. They have to pay for a pass gate or a permit to operate. The government is aware of this. And so many crimes, what they are not telling the masses is that indeed they have failed. Of course, we know, and the masses are aware because what is happening is an indication, is an evidence to the fact that the government of Nigeria could no longer in any way protect her citizens. You can see now, if you now compare it with 200 million people, you know that we don't even have. We're just at the mercy of the Almighty and whatever happens to us. Honestly, it's just God that is keeping us, not just that it's any security formation that could protect deliberately and consciously put in place to protect the life and property of Nigerians. How many places can you cite the police stations and all that? If some, of course, have come under heavy attacks, some has been overrun by the militias across board, across all regions, the eastern region, the north, north central. I mean, the entire geopolitical zones has been. I mean, police has faced a very severe attacks. Not even the military are left. Of most recent, we saw what happened in Yobe, where the military base or barracks were overrun by these militias, and yet they killed scores of military, burned their armored tanks and vehicles, and carted away with only God knows the magnitude of armory that they carted away with, which of course they will use in the latter days against the same formation, military or security formations. Needless to talk about what is happening, this uh, unprovoked killings here and there, retaliations that involves the killings of the military. And sometimes the military is, of course, responsible for all these escalations because those you killed, their loved ones, those who killed their brothers and mothers and sisters will not be happy with the police or the military formations. It's just a matter of time. Whenever they have the opportunity to retaliate, of course, they will not hesitate to do that. And that is why this security situation in Nigeria is quite very disturbing. And the truth is that we have not seen an end to this, most especially of most recent when the militaries are now taking up arms. Prior to this time, it was just for the agitators, just the use of placards, just the IPOB or Biafran's agitators were mainly using placards. But when they saw the brutality, the callous treatment meted on them were caused several hundreds, if not thousands, of their followers were murdered in the most gruesome way, and which is condemnable. Of course, most of the volunteer force or whatever, of course, they may go by name, decided to take up arms. And you know what that means? Yes, when these militaries take up arms, when the government could not address the nagging issues begging for attention, which they have raised over decades, that could jeopardize the unity, the safety of all as sundry. The government paid lip service thinking that with the use of arms or barrels of gun, they could suppress anyone speaking up, they could suppress any bagger as this case might is, or the thing should be. But they don't know that some are we are stained from deep ideologies, way of life, and frank dissatisfaction over the system, which has remained unattended to by successive governments. And this has brought us where we are today. So, in the reality of our current situation, it now necessitates that any responsible government should think on how to provide lasting solutions to this myriad of problems. It is a problem. Except you identify it as a problem, you might not be ready, of course, to provide solutions. This security, the state of insecurity in Nigeria is a very issue of serious concern. Maybe the government is still thinking, of course, they are in control or possibly living in denial of the realities. You know how much has been expended in the fight against Boko Haram, against bandits, and the number of money that have been, of course, disbursed in the under the disguise of paying ransom compensations and all that. Even of most recent, they are at in rampart, of course, adopting children here and there, and they, of course, those children should will be redeemed if actually their life is important to the government. They have to rally around and see how to compensate or pay ransoms in exchange for these lives. I mean, all this are happening in Nigeria. Within the Nigerian territory, this is not as external aggression. Then, if that happens to be external aggression, where will Nigerians run to? If the supposed militaries and the security operatives, the police, and other military formations could not nip at the bud, the crisis rocking the country, then how could they withstand external aggressions? No, these are the realities, which means the security operatives or the formation of the military business are not even adequate to ensure the internal safety of the citizens. That is the implication, and it's a very serious and disturbing issue. Most of the ministries are handicapped. Of most recent, we have seen some of them, prisoners, sincerely expressing their grievances and dissatisfaction over how they have been melted, over how they have been treated, some poor remuneration, poor allowances, poor welfare packages, even those who lost their the breadwinners in the course of defending Nigeria. Their families were not cut out. For most of their families, were just thrown out of the barracks and they don't know where to go. So, with such, of course, developments, millions will not be happy or proud to be, of course, to serve in the military or to serve Nigeria under such capacity. So, you see, the problem is compounding and expanding, and most people have been amputated who sustained several degrees of amputations and a life, of course, living all through their life, the remaining of their life with such unfortunate experience. For those who survive, of course, those who could not make it were considered as heroes, slain heroes, heroes of the past. But how can we talk of the future if the present is not secured? That is the fundamental issues that must be addressed as a matter of urgency now or never. So Nigeria is too big to be called one Nigeria. Just consider it India. India was split into three. We have the Bangladesh. The population of Bangladesh was about 171 million as 2010 or thereabouts. So they're doing exceedingly well. Talk of Pakistan's. These are countries that have gone far beyond even Nigeria. You still have the parents, the Indians are still doing exceedingly well, controlling the tech world or IT world and advancing in medicine and other, of course, uh, aspects of technology and innovations. They have moved on with their lives and they are today to be reckoned with in terms of globalizations, in terms of technology, IT, technology, and all that. They could also feed for their own populations. Nigeria can't feed her populations because of insecurity has made it almost impossible for farmers to go to farm to work to cultivate. Even those who dares either are kids, if they are fortunate, of course, they pay certain amount of levies, which of course is making life more difficult for the population found within Nigeria. So, what should the government do? For instance, Niger State is more than uh, 3 times or 10 times more than Holland and other Thailand put together, but they are doing exceptionally well. Only their external reserves or whatever they bring to the country through agriculture could sustain almost closer to Nigerian GDP or whatever you call them reserves, foreign reserves. So what are we saying? How can we be trapped in this quagmire, in this uncertainty, endless uncertainty? Nobody knows when we are getting out of this wood, and yet we tend to live in denial and self-deception. Nigeria is not working. Nigeria, as it stands now, is not working. And what are the things where were the conscious attempt, move, deliberate attempt on the part of the current administration to make it work? You keep borrowing, borrowing, and the economy is bastardized. Multinationals are leaving the shores of this country, and the implication is that most of your citizens will be retrenched. They will, of course, be thrown to the streets, and the criminality and crime is on increase on daily basis because people has the instinct to survival And when they, of course, they don't see any alternative, any means of survival, they will go for alternative, and that is quite unfortunate. They will have the tendency, of course, of committing crimes. You see what how the if internet fraudsters are just rocking the entire country. Innocent citizens are becoming victims of these callous moves. But even young, everybody is so desperate. They want to make it by all means because the politicians have their way and they are not accountable to anyone. They don't create jobs for the masses, even let alone having light for people who may want to indulge in, of course, little productions or local productions, artisans, even weathering. The barber shops could not operate except they go through, of course, diesel or the use of generating sets. So how do you go from here? And these silent issues are not being touched, they're not being discussed. Talk of borrowing upon borrowing on borrowing. What have you been able to achieve with the borrowing? The standard debts of Nigeria have hit more than 100 trillion, still counting. So, how do you pay these funds? How do you pay these amounts? Who should be held responsible? The born generations for the error committed by those supposed leaders who unfortunately are not wearing their thinking cap, or perhaps they've decided to wear, of course, the cap of deception. Come out and tell Nigerians that they can no longer be protected under this current administration. That is the truth. That is the truth. We recall when Nigerians are in federating regions. Of course, these Western regions are doing exceedingly well, developing at their own pace, using the natural resources that is, of course, within their domain to develop and give people opportunity to have free educations. Today, primary school, schools has no deficit of teachers, let alone paying school fees and catering with the families is becoming more difficult for average Nigerians. I mean, average Nigerians. It is quite unfortunate. It's quite sad. Then what is the primary essence of governance? What is government doing to protect and educate her own populations, knowing that uneducated population will, of course, leads to increase in crime and more dependence on and vulnerable, of course, to the society. So, what is government doing? What is the conscious attempt, even by the National Assemblies, the House of Representatives? They are busy sharing billions and trillions of naira to themselves and by themselves. Of course, they have little or no concern of whatever happens to the average Nigerians. There, of course, they use the slogan, "Let us allow them to breathe." Otherwise, they could strangulate all the Nigerians if that becomes necessary to protect their interests. But that is not service to humanity. It's not service to the nation. And this have, of course, made it very important and necessary for people who are calling for the agitation or secession to gain more momentum and more public support because they have seen there is no future, there is no hope. Just take a sample of average Nigerian youths. They will tell you they have lost confidence, hope in this country. Not just the youths, even the adults, the aged ones, who could no longer fend for their families, and their children could no longer cater for them as they should because everybody's having a fair share of this destructive system. Everybody's been affected. Then how long will this continue? The eastern regions, of course, was striving becomes the fastest developing economy in the world. And the North, of course, are well known for their pyramids, granules, pyramids, and other cash crops, cereal crops, in relative abundance. Then what happens to all those comparative advantage each regions enjoyed prior to the era of crude oil? Crude oil have done more damage to Nigerians, have made the government and those in leadership position more corrupt, more destructive, more clueless, more insensitive, of course, more intellectually lazy at the expense of the citizens. It's high time to have a rethink. Otherwise, we're building an army of resistance that will shut the door against every political leader who has risen in this country. The revolution is coming. If you think you have the military to secure you, the time will come, the military will turn against you that you have made their life miserable. Their children could no longer go to good schools. Their salaries could no longer sustain them. It's not even enough to take care of their transportation, let alone taking care of their children. Can the salary of a military man in Nigeria buy a bag of rice as it stands today? Of course, these questions are left to the militaries who may want to be used as thugs to disrupt peaceful process or intimidate the masses and call them bloody civilians, even when they are fighting for a just cause, which will definitely affect you and your welfare. While I leave this provoking thoughts, let me know what is your take, esteemed fans, and those who may watch this video. Let me know your own contributions via the comments tab. Remember, blessed until I come your way in the next edition. I remain Chigos Ndibo.